Hey guys, welcome back to another reading vlog. This one is a little bit special because I'm going to be participating in my very first readathon. This is the Nightmare Before Christmas readathon hosted by Michaela Reads and Maddie's Moon Library. I'll link their profiles below. I'm super excited about this because they've made such an incredible bingo board, and the goal of this is pretty much to just read as many books as you can and get bingo before the end of the week. They've also been very kind to us because we're able to like double up on the bingos, so like one book can tick off like a few different boxes. And we've also got a Discord going that is really super fun so far. So let's get to my TBR. I am a little bit of a mood reader, so I want to give myself a bit of flexibility, but I have my eye on 3 particular books. So the first one I've actually already started is Two Twisted Crowns. That's the sequel to One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I'm listening to this on audio, so obviously I am ticking off both the audio book with a number in the title and a book from an anticipated author, or the most anticipated book. Yeah, anyway, you know what I mean. I also have Slewfoot, that is high on my list, and Frankenstein. So I have those two that I would kind of like to get to. I think Slewfoot I'm leaning to the most heavily because I've been kind of saving it for this time of year. It just feels like super witchy. And the other book that I have on E is Not Good for Maidens. So I'm kind of on a dark twisted fairy tale bender right now, but I want to have some space to choose, and I have to kind of figure out how am I going to get bingo with these books, and maybe I'll be able to fit in a fourth. Probably not though. This is probably also a good time to mention that this vlog will be spoiler free. So Two Twisted Crowns has been so good. I had very high expectations and I am like 60% of the way through. So the speed that I have been reading this or listening to it is probably enough to tell you that I'm really having a great time. So this duology follows a young woman named Elsipeth who is infected. She's had disease where most children who become infected are supposed to be like killed basically, but her family kept her hidden and protected, and she pretty much grew up in the forest in this town called Blunder. Blunder is mist-locked, so it's a very gothic kind of setting and very dark twisted fantasy kind of vibe, and she becomes part of this team that are trying to dissipate the mist and set Blunder free. She also has this second character called the Nightmare in her head that is kind of always threatening to take control, or always, she has a very complicated and very interesting relationship with that. There is also tarot-inspired magic, which I have been really enjoying in the second book. I feel like the first book did a really great job setting up a lot of the rules for the magic, and because it's kind of like a hard soft, like it's right in between, enough to give the world shape and for them to be able to strategize using the magic, but there is still a lot of mystery and a lot of wonder. In the second book, that is really becoming a lot more dimensional, and they're using it in really interesting ways to problem solve and to create problems. We're getting more POV as well in this book, and part 1 has been a lot of like court intrigue and political intrigue and people reeling from the events of the first book, which I am still kind of reeling from. There's also this one card called the Maiden card, where if you tap the card or if you're using that card, it makes you very beautiful. I am a little bit amused and kind of enjoying how the effects of the Maiden card seem to be a little bit reminiscent of like Botox. Like it also makes them very cold. That's like the downside of the magic. It makes them kind of cold and heartless and not feel very much, and become a lot less expressive. Yeah, that just kind of like made me laugh a little bit because the author is kind of describing this one character who's using the Maiden card, and it just kind of sounds like she has Botox. But yeah, I will check back in when I have decided on my next book. I have a die here and I couldn't find like a normal one from our games, but it's got this, I haven't figured out what the spade is for, but I think it's a 5. No, maybe it's not. If I hit a 5, or if I hit the spade, I will figure it out and we'll go from there. But I'm gonna roll the die, and however many numbers come up, that's the number that has to be in the title of the book that I read next. And I have a few that for 2 and 3 and 4, but I don't know what I'm gonna do if I get like 5 or 6. Ignore the cat hair. 3. I know exactly what I'm going to do with you. I finished One Dark Window, and oh my god. I feel like in the last like 30%, I was just gasping, like repeatedly audibly gasping in public. I feel like she does such a great job balancing like familiar tropes that we all love about fantasy and gothic but also subverting just the right amount and like incorporating just enough stuff that's like new to her into this story that it keeps it really fresh and interesting. This is definitely a new favorite fantasy series. I also just love the magic system, and I know I go on and on and on about it, but I really love the way that it's tied to these tarot cards, and she uses them in such a different way in this story compared to how she does in the other stories. And like that combined with this like creepy, eerie, magical forest where there's just kind of a sense of wrongness to it. It works for me. It works for me so well. I really, really love it. But I also kind of love how this fantasy is female-centric, but not necessarily romance-centric. Like there is a lot of romance core to the story. But yeah, I would never say that it's romantasy. This is not like a romantic fantasy in that way. So I finished it when I was out doing errands, and now I'm ready for something new. There has been a book or a collection of short stories that I've really, really wanted to read for quite some time, and I haven't been able to find it at the library. So I was wandering around a mall in sort of a blur trying to digest what I just listened to, and I started thinking about it. And I walked by the bookstore, and I knew I shouldn't go in because I'm trying really hard not to buy books. But I checked online to see if they had the book that I wanted in there, and they did. And that is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. My friend sold it to me as this is a dark fairy tale retelling with a lot of violence, weirdness, and a ton of sex. That's my type. That's my type. And I'm here for it. So that's the plan. And I started reading the introduction by Helen Simpson already. She has something in here that I thought was really great, and I'm going to read to you. She knew from the start that she, being Angela Carter, was drawn to gothic tales, cruel tales, tales of wonder, tales of terror, fabulous narratives that deal directly with the imagery of the unconscious. And then she continues, The Bloody Chamber is often wrongly described as a group of traditional fairy tales given a subversive feminist twist, while in fact these are new stories and not retellings. As Carter made clear, my intention was not to do versions, or as the American edition of the book said horribly, adult fairy tales, but to extract the latent content from the traditional stories and use it as the beginning of new stories. So that got me completely hyped for this. I'm going to be reading this as part of the say it once, say it twice, take a chance and roll the dice. Roll a die and read a book with that many words in the title. And I'm going to also read it by candlelight tonight for the I Am, the Shadow, and the Night. We were talking in the Discord group, like, how do you read by candlelight? How do people manage to do this? How did they manage to see in that level of light? Are my eyes just terrible? So I'm gonna light an inferno. We'll just see how that goes. In my mind, there's a hierarchy of peculiar women that I aspire to. That includes Morticia Addams, Anne Rice, and now Angela Carter. I'm about 70% through The Bloody Chamber, and I just love this so much. The prose is quite flowery. It takes a lot of attention to read, and I don't think it would translate to audio very well, so I'm really glad that I actually got this physical copy. It's kind of a bit of a pleasure to actually just read out loud to yourself. I don't know if anyone else does that. One thing that I really enjoy about Angela Carter's work is that she always goes like the full banana. If there's something strange or weird that could happen, she goes there, she does it, and she usually shows that on page. I am pretty sure this is gonna be a favorite new book. I mean, it is gonna be a favorite. New favorite, all-time favorite. No question about it. Now, my other update is about Not Good for Maidens. I was just editing this video and realized I did not explain what this book is about at all. So, Not Good for Maidens is actually a retelling of Christina Rossetti's The Goblin Market. So, it is a YA horror thriller fantasy. For this one, I am in part 2, which is actually about halfway through the book, and I haven't really updated very much for that one because I just feel like I didn't have a whole lot to actually say about it. It's kind of sitting comfortably at 3 stars for me. It is most definitely a really great book for people who like Holly Black's work because you can really tell that it is drawing on a lot of like traditional interpretations of the Fae where their kind of tricksy kind of sense of morality is very different from human morality. And so that kind of brings some of the suspense and uncertainty to the plot. And the writing is really beautiful. The imagery is great, but we're not at the Goblin Market yet, and I'm like halfway through the book. And I'm reading it for the Goblin Market. I love a magical market, so I am finding it a little bit slower, but there is a lot of plot and like family secrets and things that Lou, our main character, is starting to unravel. So there's like kind of 4 main characters or primary characters in this book. It's following 2 timelines. So sometimes we're jumping back in time with Aunt May and the mom whose name I forget. May is essentially taken into the Goblin Market, and we know that the mom went in to save her, but the details of this is like slowly unfurling, while at the same time, in the present day, we are also following Neela and Lou, who are currently living in the US with the mom and the aunt, except for Neela has gone to the UK now, and she disappears into the Goblin Market. Lou gets like a mysterious phone call that sounds really scary, and she basically is like, we have to go save Neela. There's a lot of dealing with like identity and understanding like sexuality. And now in part 2, she is finally going into the Goblin Market. And so I feel like we're at a comfortable 3 stars for me, but it could become like a 4 or 5 star book. I don't think that it will be quite 5 stars for me, but it could become a very high 4, depending on how this market business kind of plays out and whether or not she's delivering on that. So once I finish these 2 books, I will be almost at bingo. I have to get one more. Oh Brother, You're Something, You Put Me in a Spin. Read a thriller with lots of twists and turns. So I'm going to do The Hollow Places for that. I've already downloaded it to my phone. It's going to be an audiobook because I have a lot of running around this weekend. Hi, hello. I thought I would just check in. I am enjoying the second part of Not Good for Maidens way more. Like huge difference in terms of like the quality of my enjoyment. And a lot of that is just being in the market. It's so visceral and gross, and there's so many different elements and like emotional strings being pulled on. I just think that the author is doing a really great job in this section, but I still am not completely sure what I'm going to be rating the book overall. I have 3 chapters left. I thought that I would make a cup of tea and read that now, and then I guess I'll be back with my thoughts. Has gotten cold, but I still count it as the Deadly Nightshade and Frog's Breath. Have a coffee or tea while reading. I technically had a few sips. I'm done, and I think I would put Not Good for Maidens in the ballpark of 4 stars. I still feel like it would have been a little bit better as a novella, a little bit tighter. I mean, it is my personal reading preference, and it's really hard actually to read and rate this book when I'm also reading The Bloody Chamber, which I have a strong preference for what Angela Carter is doing with the fairy tales than versus what Not Good for Maidens is doing. Because I feel like the Not Good for Maidens was trying to create a great story and to craft a really entertaining, dark fairy tale-esque narrative, and I think that that was done successfully. I just like how Angela Carter is doing something interesting with like feminism and her way of interpreting the story. But things that I did like about Not Good for Maidens, I love how she did the market. I love the magical market. I love how the goblins really just treat humans and behave as if humans are just meat. Like it's such a horrific and visceral setting, and she really doesn't hold back. Like none of the characters are safe. Everybody gets seriously injured or implicated in this somehow. And another thing I was like very relieved about when I was reading this book is that I was kind of wondering about the title. Is Not Good for Maidens, like, is this a reference to virginity? Is this going to become a thing about virgins? And it's not. It doesn't. And I really am relieved about that. I would say it's more like dark fantasy than horror, but maybe that's because it's YA or because my tolerance for horror has increased this year, which is also quite possible. And I'm a little bit stressed out actually because tomorrow is really busy for me as well, and I still haven't hit bingo. I need to finish The Hollow Places, and I've read like the first chapter, not even the first chapter. I've read a few pages. I still have a couple of stories from The Bloody Chamber. Probably I should have been a little bit more strategic about this because I think almost everyone else on the Discord has pretty much hit bingo at least once, if not multiple times. And I'm just having a fantastic time, but not strategically. So I'm a terrible vlogger. I listened to all of The Hollow Places, I finished it, and I didn't check in once. The Hollow Places is kind of a portal fantasy like Narnia, but it's a bit more horror. And as I was reading it, I was realizing that I'm supposed to be reading a thriller, and this is definitely horror. And then I Googled, and Reddit told me all horror are thrillers, but not all thrillers are horror. So as far as I'm concerned, I just got bingo. The Hollow Places is following a mid-30s woman who has just recently got divorced. She moves in with her uncle, who runs a museum, which is like a collection of oddities and like random stuff that he's hoarded. And just listening to the first few sentences of this, it's describing all of the stuff that he's accumulated, and it was like almost giving me stress hives just thinking about the level of disorganization. So you could say that TK Kingfisher did a great job in creating atmosphere in this book. She is pretty much taking care of this museum while he is away and he's ill. While she's there, she and her friend, who also runs a coffee shop and is sort of like a diva, he like wears outrageous outfits and stuff, they discover a hole that has been like knocked into the drywall, and they open it up and discover a hallway. And there's a number of very creepy things that begin to happen as they venture down this hallway and discover a place that is a lot like the wood between the worlds in Magician's Nephew. But of course it's not, awe doesn't last for very long because then things get a little dire. But I had a really good time with it. You know, it wasn't a 5-star necessarily, but it was super entertaining. Totally scratched the itch. I really liked the way that TK Kingfisher creates these eccentric and like unusual characters because they're totally believable. Like, you know somebody who is the eccentric that her uncle is. So yeah, I also finished The Bloody Chamber. I finished those last few bits, and I have to just say, Lady in the House of Love is my favorite. It's sort of a Jack and the Beanstalk, but make it vampires. I really appreciate how Carter makes a point of making sure that her characters and her female characters have dimensionality, and she really does an excellent job in these stories portraying how their agency and their desires carry on beyond assault or abuse of different kinds. I also really appreciate how she plays with what different people's happily ever afters look like. In a traditional fairy tale, it often focuses a lot on like the female reproduction and like creating a home and like a very traditional image of femininity and what a happy woman should be. But Carter plays with things like becoming the beast or morality chain. I just thought that she did an incredible job with it, and I loved it. I loved it. It is a new all-time favorite for sure, easily. So I got bingo. It was by the skin of my teeth. I finished The Hollow Places like 5 minutes ago, and it is 6 p.m. on the last day. And I have to say that participating in my first readathon really affirmed that joining BookTube was one of the best decisions that I made this year. The best part has definitely been the Discord and like chatting with everybody who's also participating about our progress and just different books that we love. So a huge thank you to Michaela and Maddie for hosting this. I am definitely going to be participating next year, and I'm really excited to participate in future readathons. So I guess if you've made it to this part in the video, first of all, thank you for watching. But tell me what your favorite readathons are, or if you've never participated in one, let me know what ones you've heard about that are intriguing to you. But thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!